Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again for a reactions video, this time working on the Saturday night main event that took place on December 13th, 2025. Of course, dubbed John Cena's final match. A lot of people either dreading this or looking forward to it, depends on which side of the fence you are on. But yeah, let's go through every single match like we always do, get our thoughts on it, and yeah, we'll go from there. First match of the evening, of course, has Cody Rhodes going up against Oba Femi, champion versus champion here. For the match we got, I thought Oba impressed. And I think you kind of hit on this in the predictions, KP, thinking maybe Drew McIntyre would interfere. Obviously, that is what we got. KP, what'd you make of the match?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I did absolutely think that Drew would get involved here, and I thought that could have been a good decision and a good way of doing things if they'd done things properly. But unfortunately, the lack of cojones from people in the back and creative and whatever made this be a complete and utter mess in terms of the finish. So that's my personal opinion. You can agree or disagree with that however you like. But personally, from my perspective, Oba was looking great. You know, Cody and Oba were going at it. It was a good one-on-one matchup. It was doing really well, and the flow was quite nice. However, we then have Drew McIntyre come down. The crowd seems to pop a bit because they know what's about to happen. But instead of Drew, costing Cody the match and, doing it in a way that, just sort of like irks Cody, Drew just straight up, which I guess is appropriate to his character, comes in and just straight up attacks Cody and starts mauling him in the ring. So that goes for a disqualification, or I even think, actually, WWE put this down as a no contest, which honestly is not correct at all. It's definitely a DQ. So yeah, the match ends there and then. And then what we have afterwards, we have Femi, who's obviously frustrated. He takes Drew McIntyre off of Cody, he sort of like squares him up. And then we see Cody and Oba sort of team together kind of thing and take out Drew McIntyre, send him out the ring. And then there's this really dull, flat, like awkward moment between the two men who've just had this pretty decent match up until the interference. And yeah, they just sort of had this like really awkward like moment between the two of them. Cody grabs the titles, gives over the NXT championship, and then the two just stand together in the ring, holding their titles up. But I mean, honestly, it was such a safe cop out finish. They could have done anything else in this one. Like, I'm not even suggesting that they had to have Femi win this one. They could have had Cody still win, and it would have been better than what they did. But this was just a really playing it safe on the fence, really just no balls way to finish this matchup. And it's disappointing because the crowd were deflated by this one. Absolutely just, just completely deflated any energy out of them. And yeah, it's really unfortunate. So, yeah, a shame. Didn't really like the finish, but apart from that, it was going well up until that point. It had a nice feel to it. I gave it a 6 out of 10, which I guess is slightly on the positive side, but it could have been so much better. What a disappointing finish. Nick, what did you make of this one? Do you agree with me about the finish was flat? They could have done something differently, or could you see some positives in there somewhere?
I will draw out the positives here because Oba, impressed me. I think he impressed, most, holding his own against Cody. And that was my kind of one thing I wanted from this match. If he holds his own, gets even, 45, 50% of the offense, I think he got more than that. So I think in terms of, kind of big picture, getting Oba on the big stage, I think he impressed here, me included. And I'm sure this will come as a surprise because of how much I dog on these DQ or finishes like this. Um, yeah, I think this does keep both men safe, which maybe that is frustrating. To some, or yourself included. But yeah, I'm okay with this. It helps further the story between Drew and Cody, obviously, which is very, very personal. And then yeah, Oba knocked Drew on his ass. So I think this hit all the right notes for me. Yes, I think a more fun, impressive match would have been to have a full match, even if Oba is not to win. I would have obviously preferred that, but regardless, I think Cody kind of throws the title over there. It almost kind of felt like that was a bit of a cowardly way to go because I think he realized um, how close in talent maybe Oba already is, and so I kind of got that from him. Obviously, Cody's been showing some more heelish tendencies, so they didn't have like the full-on celebration salute to Cena like the other matches did. So yeah, I didn't really have a bunch of issues with this one. Obviously, just a bit short, so docket some points for that. But yeah, I give this one a 6.5 out of 10, so just a smidge higher than yours. But I wasn't mad about the way this one went down. Getting to the next match, we have Bayley with Lyra Valkyria going up against Sol Ruca with Zarya. KP, what'd you make of this one?
Yeah, pretty good match, to be fair. Definitely improvement from our opening contest, that's for sure, in terms of just an overall package here, in my opinion. And it was fun to watch. You know, we saw a couple of maybe slight awkward moments here and there, but, you know, that can happen sometimes. Everyone's human. But yeah, Sol Ruca had a pretty much coming-of-age moment here, to be fair, for her on the main roster, getting her first singles win, I believe, since arriving on the scene. And obviously she is still part of the NXT roster, still killing things down there. But yeah, this was definitely interesting. I thought this might have gone a different way. I thought Zarya might have been a bit more involved here. So was a little surprised to see it just sort of go very, very smoothly in that sense. But yeah, I thought the way it went down, it was great. I mean, we saw Bayley hit a Rose plant and you know, got a bit overzealous with the cover. Therefore, Sol Ruca's foot goes onto the ropes, and then the Soul Snatch was great as well. You know, Bayley selling it really, really well, sort of like just almost naturally just like rolls halfway out the ring. Quite like that because you don't see that normally. It's either all the way out or not at all. So then, yeah, you know, Sol Ruca dragging her back in, and then Bayley sort of, you know, possuming in for a pinfall, doesn't get it. Sol Ruca reverses it, puts the weight onto Bayley, and that's enough to get the victory. So it was quite a nice finish, actually, kind of unique in that sense. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it, to be fair. And the matchup itself was generally just quite interesting to watch. So yeah, I had a good time with this one. I thought it was good, and I thought both women looked pretty great, especially Sol Ruca. You know, we obviously know how talented and great Bayley is. You know, someone of her accolades. You know, this is an absolutely huge win for Sol Ruca to get a victory over someone of Bayley's caliber. So yeah, this is just a really fine moment. Generally speaking, I can't really fault it, to be honest. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, just a couple of slightly awkward moments throughout the contest, but generally it was good. Wasn't anything spectacular by any means, but what a great first win for Sol on the main roster in terms of singles competition. Brilliant for her, absolutely brilliant. What did you make of this one, Nick? Generally speaking, the just the overall flow, the win, the finish, and yeah, we do see that little bit of you can't see me afterwards. All four women in the ring saluting. That's a night. It's a night for John Cena at the end of the day, and they did their bit for sure.
Yeah, and I think most women, excuse me, most talent throughout the night after the match kind of pay homage, salute to John Cena, which I think is just great to see. It just realizes that everyone involved here knows they're part of something special and something bigger than themselves. So I love that aspect of it. And you kind of hit on my main point, which was obviously it helps to be on the other side of the ring with Bayley. But I think this was one of, if not the best match I've seen from Sol Ruca in a long time. A lot of her moves are high risk, high reward, which I think you were kind of alluding to. Sometimes coming off as awkward. You know, there was a point and stretch in Sol Ruca's career where she was just having trouble with a lot of her moves. I think she's cleaned that up quite nicely. And honestly, like I said, it helps to have Bayley on the other side, but she looked damn good here. And to pick up the win over someone like Bayley, I think we kind of hit on that being probably a big possibility, and Bayley would probably, you know, kind of like Cena's mentality, would very much go for that. And this just worked on all regards. And yeah, I think Zarya would have. I too thought Zarya would have been a bit more involved, but however, it seems like that story keeps going back and forth. I don't know what the end game is with that. So yeah, for what we got, Lyra didn't really do much at all. So I guess she's just there for more than mental or just physical support there than anything. But yeah, I really like this outcome. I actually give this one 9 out of 10. Thought Sol Ruca looked really good here. Getting on to the next match, we have Javon Evans and Leon Slater going up against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, as we would expect from these four men. Absolutely nonstop action. Yeah, every single man here dishing out quite a bit of offense. KP, what'd you make of the match?
This was a lot of fun. Yeah, this was a really high-paced, high-energetic match. Just had some lovely sequences throughout. You know, we expected this one to be pretty, just crazy to watch, and that's exactly what we got from this one. So yeah, I was loving the just the way it all went down. I thought Javon Evans, Leon Slater, for two guys who have never been on a WWE PLE before performing. I thought they absolutely killed it in terms of the main roster anyway. They absolutely killed it. They had such a great time out there, and yeah, they didn't look out of place against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee by any means necessary. So yeah, it was really, really great in just seeing them sort of like rise to the occasion. In terms of how the match went as well, I just couldn't really get enough of it. Would have loved if this one went another like 7 or 8 minutes. That would have been ideal, would have been perfect. But for what we did get in the time that we were allowed, it was still really, really good. So yeah, there was a lot of high quality in this one, which is a very unfortunate moment, like right towards the end, where AJ goes for a phenomenal forearm and unfortunately does fall, off of the ropes and tumble. But at the same time, picking the positive out of the situation, Leon Slater, 21 years old, acting on his his ring smarts immediately, goes for a cover and just capitalize on the situation, sees Styles take a nasty fall, thinks, oh, I can win this match now. Let's go for a cover. And there's the situation sort of resolved. So, yeah, I thought that was absolutely brilliant, thinking from him on, such a high pressure situation. So, yeah, they just completely changed the negative into a decent bit after all. So, yeah, regarding the win, obviously not really too surprised by Styles and Dragon Lee getting the win here. It does come via a Styles clash from AJ onto Leon Slater moments after that little hiccup from Styles moments before. But yeah, loved it. What a win, what a matchup, and just so much fun and so energetic to watch from start to finish. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Like I said, I would have loved to see this go another 7 or 8 minutes. Then we could have got a truly great tag team contest that we probably would have looked at for quite a long time. What did you make of this one, Nick, though? Do you agree? Probably could have had a bit longer, right? And yeah, I thought that Javon and Leon Slater, they just look like they were part of the main roster here. They didn't look like NXT guys whatsoever. Did you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. I do agree. Javon and Leon could be on the main roster tomorrow, as could a lot of this NXT talent we've seen being showcased here throughout the night. Yeah, I think they all could be, but yeah, especially Javon and Leon. As for the match itself, yeah, props to Leon for kind of covering that up, making it seem as least less awkward, I guess. I think the women could learn a lot from the men because they're really good at doing that if that scenario does come up. Whereas when it happens in the women's matches, it seems like everyone just kind of forgets what they're doing, and it kind of highlights it a little bit more. So I think they take notes from this kind of thing. And Leon, is incredible in that it's so rare. And of course, for all the men in the match, for it to be AJ Styles to be the one to make the air, I almost sat there and thought, I was like, did he do that on purpose to try to make these guys look even better? I wouldn't put it past him, but also it looked like he was pretty pissed that he did do that. So regardless, it was a ton of fun. And yeah, I think another 7 minutes would be a great shout. The more time you give these guys, the better. So I did give this one an 8 out of 10. Regardless, it was a lot of fun. Getting into the next bit before the main event, which has the Miz. I thought it was kind of comical to have Miz on these all videos throughout the night, showcasing how much he respects John Cena, and then getting back into kayfabe, showing how pissed he was to not be involved. So a bit of back and forth there, hot and cold, if you will. But yeah, we have the Miz come out, and then we have Ron Cena, if you will, R-Truth come out. And just a fun all around segment here. Get some more spotlight to Joe Hendry. I think all these people will be retired, and R-Truth will still be sitting here doing his best. So, KP, just want to get your quick thoughts on this. How you like this one?
I think this one hit really nicely. To be fair, you've got a couple of situations where obviously all three of these guys have their own sort of right to sort of be on the show in some sort of way. R-Truth, obviously, so much history. John Cena is childhood hero. So that's obviously, a really cool moment for him just being part of this show. Miz, one of John Cena's greatest rivals. We joked about it in recent weeks with him not being in the tournament and, obviously having a couple of chances to compete in it and not, advance to this late stage. So I think, him wanting so desperately to be part of the show is such a great thing that he was allowed to have this happen because he did have so much history with John Cena, so this is a great moment for him especially. I'm sure he would have absolutely loved doing this whole thing, obviously a bit of a comic relief moment, but I'm sure he would have really, really enjoyed it. And then Joe Hendry as well, for those that may or may not know, he is absolutely always wanted to have a match with John Cena, so what's the next best thing? Being part of, his last ever show, being in part of it in some way, shape or form. I think that's obviously a good way to sort of get him involved and just to say that he did have a little bit of a say in how the show went down. So yeah, when he's in the ring with people like R-Truth and Miz, you're doing something right. And yeah, he hasn't long been officially part of WWE, but he's already in a big moment such as this. So yeah, it's just a fun, comical segment to sort of to get ready for the main event. And yeah, I thought this was a nice little relief in between. So I enjoyed this one for what it was. It was just a really funny segment. So yeah, no real negatives here and just a nice little way to sort of get prepared for later. So yeah, what did you make of it, generally speaking? It's a good moment for all these three guys. But yeah, do you think it was a nice moment, or do you think maybe it takes away and distracts it from a little bit? I don't think so, but maybe there are people out there that think that could be the case.
No, and if you're one of those individuals that does have that mindset, I think maybe you need to loosen up a little bit, have a little more fun. Wrestling, we come to wrestling to get a relief from real life, and sometimes we have to sit back and laugh at this kind of moment. For Hendry to have a WrestleMania moment and now to be included on the last night of John Cena, I mean that's a pretty impressive resume already. But yeah, all three of these guys just it was charisma, and this was just a fun to have a good laugh before we cry all together. With that, let's get into the main event, which of course is Gunther going up against John Cena. Gunther entering to one of the loudest chorus of boos I think I've ever heard. And, both men, I think, absolutely, love that. Gunther can't help himself but smile. Cena then is who enters the ring and is celebrated as if he, were a god. I think this whole thing was done almost perfectly. But Cena and Gunther have the crowd eating out of their hands throughout this entire match, and yeah, I think this one was just really well done. IWC obviously is very heavy on their opinions, and I think we are going to reserve a lot of our thoughts for that on another episode of If We're Being Honest. But for now, KP, just want to get your thoughts on how you believe the match went.
Yeah, this one was this one was a tearjerker for sure. Just generally speaking, everything about it was just emotional, and I didn't really know what to make of it as I was going through it because I didn't know how I was going to feel come the end of it. So I was sort of thinking ahead, but also trying to live in the moment and enjoy it for what it was. And honestly, it was a good match. It felt absolutely massive as well. Gunther, I feel like the main thing that he takes from this one, beating Cena in his final ever match, is that he once again feels like this public enemy number one, the hated heel that he should never have stopped really being, to such a grand magnitude. I think he lost a little bit of that sort of moniker throughout the course of the year. Bad booking decisions, whatever. But I think he's just brought that all back into frame here, which is amazing for him. He deserves to have that back once again. We saw so much going through this matchup. Cena threw everything at Gunther. There were two five-knuckle shuffles, even an attempted third. Didn't quite land. Multiple AAs, including one through the announce table from Steel Steps, an Avalanche AA. We saw a few regular ones here and there, like in between bits and bobs. We saw an STF or an STFU, as Michael Cole did actually announce it on commentary. That was in the mix too. And then, we also saw on the other side of things, Gunther unleashing his entire arsenal of moves on Cena. And he even, at parts, demanded Cena, give up, as if this was like an I Quit match or something, which I found very interesting. So, it was really good. The crowd were incredible for this one. Obviously, they should have been, and they were. So that was awesome. And, they gave Cena all their support from start to finish. Eventually, in the end, we do have Gunther tapping Cena out, which is quite the surprise. He hits the sleeper in this long part of struggling for John Cena, but eventually he does succumb to it. Really cinematic moment. He puts his hand up in the very iconic hand pose for Cena, and the OK sort of symbol. And eventually, that's after the referee checking for 1, 2, and 3, and then Gunther locks it in once more after an AA, which Cena doesn't get the win, only gets a 2 count. And in that last sleeper, that's when he taps out. But afterwards we see emotional stuff around the outside, all the backstage staff, so many members of the roster, basically the entire locker rooms there. There are NXT guys and Performance Center guys there as well, I noticed. But there was a who's who of just people joining around the ring. And what a final moment it was. John Cena takes his sneakers off, takes off his wristband, his armband, and he says goodbye to the WWE Universe by heading up the ramp for the last time, and then to the back for the last time. But I liked it. I liked it for what it was. I thought it was a really great match. Solidifies Gunther back in that spot that he should be in. And we saw Cena, just going out with one last hurrah. Couldn't quite get it done, but he gave it his damnedest, that's for sure. I thought this was brilliant. And as a big John Cena fan, I think this is a great way to end things, personally speaking. I gave this a 9 out of 10, and was just absolutely solid. Was it the best match we'll ever see? No, I don't think so. I think 9's pretty fair. So that's what it's getting from me. Nick, what did you make of this one in terms of just everything? How did it do for you, and was it the right way to go out for John Cena?
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I think we could probably go a whole hour on just speaking on, the tour itself and this match itself. But I think for the match itself, and one could certainly argue that maybe Gunther didn't need that additional push, but then one could also argue, well, he kind of did based on how this year went, as you alluded to, and the loss to Jay and all that. But regardless, for what we got, what we have here, I just think it was beautiful. A fan of wrestling, even if a casual fan, you know who John Cena is. John Cena, had us, the storytelling between both these guys, but especially Cena, was just, I would say perfectly done. Everything from start to finish here, from Cena and the way Gunther capitalized on it, was just a great decision. I think a lot of people are just kind of are bittersweet, and so when a lot of people are have that bittersweet moment, they tend to want to point to something wrong, because it's easier to point fingers than just to accept the fact. And so we talk about stages of grief. So maybe that's what we're dealing here with a lot of the IWC currently, just not happy with this opinion. But like I said, we can't get into that, and we intend to do that in a longer video. But for what we got here, Saturday Night Main Event, I thought everything through from start to finish served a purpose. Everything, we did a great job of kind of showing forward. And this is what I think Cena wanted, is he always alluded to. He wanted to leave the business in a better spot than when he found it. And I think that's exactly what we successfully accomplished throughout the night. So with that, Saturday Night Main Event, John Cena's final match, farewell to John Cena. Yes, a very bittersweet moment, and I'm sure all of us will be sitting here thinking about it over the next couple weeks. But yeah, it is certainly a special moment. I think it's a moment we will not soon forget. But with that, this is the Saturday Night Main Events reactions video. If you disagree or agree with what we put down here, you think something should have been done differently, let us know in the comments below. We'll of course be back with our Raw, NXT, and SmackDown recap throughout the week. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.